Hi, I'm Martin Albrechtsen.
Hi guys, I'm Saido Berahino.
Hi, I'm Darren Carter.
You're listening to the Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. We're back again today for episode 89. I've got to apologise because it's been a little bit of a while since our last podcast. Of course, if you're keeping up with our YouTube channel, you've seen all the content on there. But as for sit-down podcast episodes, yeah, we've been really lacking in that department recently. So apologies about that. But we're back today to kind of give a little run of the mill over how the season's gone since we last caught up. And for that, I'm joined by Tom from Baggies Bulletin. Tom, welcome back. I suppose the last time you're on here was our last episode, but how have you been keeping? Are you all right?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I've been good. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we were just obviously on a little chat before you hit record, and yeah, been quite busy just with general life, so been struggling a little bit to kind of keep up with the content, a bit like yourself, pal. But yeah, everything aside from the Baggies is going well. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry to draw you back into this
Yes,
Albion infested world at the moment, but yeah, well, of course, Baggies Bulletin, of course, is your Instagram page. We've spoken many times about that in the past. How are things over there? What sort of, for those who haven't heard your voice, and I'm sure they have because you've been on a few times now, how are things going over there, and what sort of things can the listener find over there?
Yes, mate. Like I just said, I have still been putting the content up on there, but struggling a little bit of late, especially with the videos. I need to give myself a kick up the backside and get some more video content on there, you know, match reaction and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going well, thanks, mate. You know, kind of subscribers, followers, whatever you want to call them, have kind of been creeping up still, so it's great to see. And yeah, it's you know, I just enjoy speaking to everyone on the page, all the other Albion fans and whatnot on there. So yeah, it's going well, thanks, mate.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. And yeah, of course, listener, if you want to go and follow Baggies Bulletin, there will be a link in the description. But yeah, Tom, I'm going to drag you back into sort of reality and drag you back into, I suppose, what was a dismal defeat again on Saturday. I mean, yeah. I mean, back-to-back 3-2 losses at the Hawthorns. I mean, how on earth can we sum up yesterday afternoon? I mean, it's just same old story, I suppose, really.
Yeah, mate, we could probably sit here for 3 hours, couldn't we, and rant about it, to be honest. It's hard to kind of summarize, isn't it? I think, you know, you just made a good point there that obviously the defeat to Blues in the last game at the Hawthorns, and then following it up with 3-2 defeat to Swansea yesterday. You know, we're getting worse. It's as simple as that, isn't it? We're getting worse. Defensively, you know, that's obviously the biggest area of concern. Is, you know, we from looking quite kind of solid at the back at the start of the season, you know, to where we are now. It's just scary, isn't it? How you know, how things have turned around and how badly we are performing now at the back, and how easy it is for teams to score against us. I think that's those two games you've mentioned. You know, it's just been, for me, you know, sat there watching, just been, you know, so scary as to how easy teams are finding it to kind of cut through us and find the back of the net. And you know, that was exactly the case again yesterday. I think I was reading something earlier, and I think Swansea had 4 shots on target, I think it was, and they scored 3 goals.
Yeah, well,
and this is just a common theme, isn't it, of the last few games? I know we had that draw against Norwich, but you know, you take that out of the equation, we've just been so bad at the back and just been shipping goals so easily. And you know, we're not even making teams work for it, are we?
No, not at all. I mean, you've literally just read part of the script. I don't know how hard you've studied our little running order that we've got, but you've just said, you know, Swansea 4 shots on target, they scored 3, and it says common theme this season. I mean, yeah, you've taken
probably where I've just kind of probably just, that's where I've just read it literally earlier on, mate, and it's just kind of stuck in there. So apologies.
No, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, Swansea, they had those 4 shots on target, they scored 3. And I mean, it's just such a common theme with us this season, isn't it? Teams are finding it so easy to just score. I mean, it's so, you look at last season when under maybe Ishmael, when teams were having, a few chances and spurning quite a few, every single shot virtually seems to end up in the back of our net, doesn't it? It's just, I can't put my finger on it. Maybe defensively we're not getting out to a couple of these shots. I mean, the second goal for Swansea, I think it was, sticks out for me as one where I think it was Ensham had a lot of time on the ball to pull away and get into the sort of edge of the area and pull his shot in. But, I think it's just baffling. I mean, I've never seen anything really quite like it at the Albion, where every single shot seems to result in a goal. I mean, it's like, this is the sort of thing that would happen in the Premier League. I mean, with the amount of, quality in that division, but it certainly shouldn't be happening in the Championship against sides like Swansea. Either we're the most unlucky team in the world, which I think Bruce is kind of been trying to push in, quotes and stuff, which I think quite a few Newcastle fans saying that that's been the case, was the case with them. It was always kind of the luck card being played, but it's gone on a bit too long really to be unlucky really for me, Tom. I think defensively, goalkeeping, I think there has to be the questions asked, because it's just far too easy for teams to slice through us at the moment.
Yeah, you're spot on, mate. And I think it's obviously easy to point the finger at the goalkeeper who he's having a really bad start to the season, and the defense, but it's collectively, it's a team, isn't it? We've got to include the midfield and attack in that as well. It's just teams are just, they're just finding it too easy to kind of pass through the lines and just carve out opportunities. And then, even when they carve those opportunities out, they're just finding it too easy to get past our goalkeeper. Just collectively, it's just been so bad the last few games. And you mentioned there, Bruce, like you're right, the last kind of however many games now, his post-match interviews, it's the blame never seems to kind of lie with him. Like you said, it's decisions going against us or bad luck and so on. But there was definitely an element of that earlier on in the season, where we were playing well in matches. Thinking back now to the game against Watford, the game against Burnley at home, where we played really well, and we should have won those games, and luck didn't fall for us. He was justified in coming out afterwards and saying that, but he can't say that now, because like I said at the start of the chat, we've just been getting worse and worse and worse, as the games are moving along, and you can't just pin that down to bad luck. You can't do that. It's something is most definitely wrong. And for me, it's the big one for me is tactics. I do think it's tactics. I think Bruce is just, I just think his time's up. I think we were kind of discussing this last time we spoke, that the game has moved on now, hasn't it? And these kind of old school coaches, managers, they're just slowly getting phased out of the game, aren't they? Even in the lower leagues, I find, even in like League One, you find there's more progressive young managers in the division now than the likes of Bruce, these old school managers who've been around for a long time. And, that's what the issue is for me. I just think, and you made a great point. Again, I want to refer to your notes that you sent across to me, like, Russell Martin yesterday, and, I know Swansea haven't had a great start to the season, but, I do quite rate that Russell Martin. He likes to play possession-based football, doesn't he? Try and play football the right way, keep the ball on the deck as much as possible. And he like you said, he got his tactics spot on. He'd obviously worked on how to kind of approach the game against us, in order to try and get a result. And especially that first half, they completely dominated the game. And this is the point I'm making is, you've got a chap here who's very little experience. I think he was at MK Dons, wasn't he? He finished as a player, MK Dons in League One, and then he got the job at Swansea. I think last season was his first full season at Swansea. This is his second season, You got a chap here who's kind of out thinking, in terms of his tactics, etc.
Yeah.
A guy who's been around for however long he's been around, who's got most definitely a better squad of players available to him.
Mm.
And he's been done. He's been done ultimately by this, this boy Russell Martin. It's as simple as that. And that's the worrying thing for me is, he's supposed to have this kind of wealth of knowledge, and he's done it before in the Championship, so on. But in my opinion, I just think the game's kind of it's just progressed past these kind of Bruce-esque managers, and I just don't think he knows how to kind of change his approach and adapt in game. And if it's not working, then it's not working. There's no trust, I think, within the Albion fans that Bruce can do something to change it. Especially in game. So yeah, I don't know what you think, mate.
Yeah, well, I think, you read my mind with the notes again. I mean, tactically, Russell Martin, I think he's played an absolute blinder against Bruce yesterday. I mean, we couldn't get out of defence at all, and that for the quality of player that I think that we've actually got in the starting 11 yesterday, I think that's really worrying. We were playing out from the back, and every time we were having to go long because Swansea pressed us quite well in that area, and I think we didn't do enough of that to them. They could get out so easily. I mean, there was one point where I think they started to move with the goalkeeper, and I think they were down, and down the side of the fullback within 10 seconds. And I think that's, testament to what a good coach Russell Martin possibly is. And I think, there's too many managers like that who are going to outthink Bruce this season. You see, you saw, John Eustace, Birmingham City's manager. I mean, is this his second managerial job? I think Kidderminster Harriers was his first, and then I think caretaker at QPR, and then now at Birmingham. And I think, he got things spot on with against Bruce as well. And I mean, that's a manager who's been in the game been a manager, in the Championship for a matter of weeks, let alone Russell Martin, who's had a year. I mean, it's a bit scary how well these managers are out thinking and outplaying Bruce with their tactics and the way they're setting their teams up. And yeah, for me, I think that's where the writing is kind of on the wall for me, because I don't have faith in what he's doing tactically. And I think that in the attacking third, I think that's where things are particularly worrying for me, because I'm looking at what seems like a really good attacking quartet with Wallace, Swift, Dean Garner and Thomas Asante up front yesterday. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking they don't look like they've been coached really well into, combinations and, playing well in the attacking third. I think they're kind of being left to, themselves, kind of thinking, you four are good players, you crack on and, you see what you can make of the ball when it gets in the attacking third. And I just think that's not how you can do things now. I think you can, give some players a free role. Of course, that's always, something that could really come in handy. But I think, when they're on the ball, they look kind of devoid of a little bit of ideas. And I think, they are good players, but they can't be, it seems like they're being completely relied on to think for themselves and kind of work it out for themselves. And I think, that's where I think we're coming a bit unstuck. I saw Swansea yesterday with some really organised attacking play, the way they were overlapping in the wide areas and stuff. And yeah, I see a little bit of that, but I don't see enough to really, scare opposition. And I think, we were quite easily robbed of the ball because there was not very much movement in that area. And I think, the players are kind of thinking, where do I run now? I've got to think for myself, really. I can't, look back to my training session last week and think, I've been told to run into this channel or been told to run into this pocket of space, because I'm not convinced that kind of stuff is being done well enough for us, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I think, a good point, a really good point you just mentioned there is, I'm still very much of the opinion that, he's got some really good players for this level, got some really good players, to pick from ultimately. And you take Thomas Asante out of the equation, because obviously he's still a bit of an unknown at this level, coming from Salford. But you just look at, Wallace, Swift,
Yeah.
being gone, and then you now add Tom Rogic to the mix as well. I know, obviously it was his first game yesterday, but we've got him, adding him to the mix. You ask any team in the Championship, would you want these players playing for your club? And I think, even the top teams would say yes to at least a couple of them. And the stats don't lie. Wallace and Swift have been absolutely killing it in the Championship for the last few seasons for kind of lesser teams, and it's like John Swift. He just seems to completely like stifled him, and some of the Albion fan base are starting to kind of get on his back and aim a bit of criticism, because he has been struggling in matches, but there's in my opinion, there's still a player in there. It's just he's not finding the best way to utilize him and get the best out of him. And I think what it ultimately is talking about him adapting and being able to change in tactics and not having a plan B.
Yeah.
And I think it's clearly evident that that point is proven in that the formation. He's playing the 4-2-3-1 formation.
Yeah.
And obviously DK getting injured, you could see that he was setting up to have DK as the big target man up front. That bit, kind of more typical number 9, focal point up top, and then we've obviously got Dean Garner and Wallace wide, putting crosses in, getting balls into the box. Swift kind of playing behind him.
Yeah.
And obviously DK got injured, and we didn't manage to bring in a replacement for him before the transfer window closed. And it's been quite clearly evident that Grant wasn't up to the task of being able to fulfill that number 9 role. And I think, to be fair to Thomas Sante, I think he has played quite well in the 2 games he started. He's put himself about, and he's definitely in terms of his kind of endeavour and his work ethic and so on, it looks really good. He's obviously keen to impress, but we cannot be relying on a young lad who's just come up, we've just brought from League Two to kind of be spearheading our attack and scoring the goals. And I've been kind of saying this for a while now. I'm saying, he needs to change it up. He needs to maybe change the formation or the approach to better suit the players he has got available to him. But the way I've just kind of perceived it is he's just said, okay, well, we're just going to stick with the 4-2-3-1 and just hope that eventually, it clicks and it comes good. Even though DK is going to be out until kind of December, let's just kind of hope that eventually kind of it works out, because we've not seen anything different, have we? Even in matches, we've not even seen him. Well, I can't remember a time where I've seen him change the formation or change the approach. He might have pushed players further on to try and maybe get something from the game, but we haven't seen a clearly evident change to the formation and the setup and the way we're approaching games. And again, that's just like a massive, massive concern for me. It's just like it's like what we said. There's just no plan B there whatsoever. What's the saying? Like, how many times can you kind of flog a dead horse? I think is the saying, isn't it? Where it's just like, it's not working. These guys, and there's some good players, but it's not working. Dean Garner, Wallace, getting balls into the box and no one being there. I'm kind of losing the will to live with just seeing how much play comes down our wings for balls to come into the box, but then we haven't got the right kind of players to be in there winning headers, and those strikers that we have got available to us at this point aren't suited to that. That's how we just continue to set up. Wallace and Dean Garner are the focal points, aren't they? Going down the wing and getting balls into the box. But what nothing's coming of it, is it really? It's. So it's just increasingly frustrating, mate. And ultimately, I just don't see how he can remain in charge. If he is to remain in charge, then it's not a footballing decision. Most definitely, it's not a footballing decision, because we're on the slide. We've continued to slide, since, Ismail, the bad run started under Ismail, Bruce come in, it's just been a continuous slide, and it's getting worse this season, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
His position has become untenable to me. I just don't, I'll be so surprised if next week, come the next match, he's still got a job. I just can't see how he can continue.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make the point on Swift there, Tom, but you kind of mentioned it. I think we're obviously trying to get the ball wide, and I get that, and it's a good way to play. I mean, in the Championship, it works if you've got a big target man in the middle. You've seen, well, I can't think of a specific example, but there are teams who have got big target men up front, and they've got good crosses to the ball, and it works really well.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very old-fashioned brand of football in a way. I mean, it's not quite long ball, it's nothing like that, don't get me wrong. I mean, yesterday it was a little bit because I think Swansea pushed us to play that way, but I think it's quite an old-fashioned way to dominate the game. I think that's remnant of, I mean, reading a few books about it. I think I think Blackburn, when they kind of won the league, they played a very similar way to that, where the idea was you just get the ball wide and cross it in, and you've got a decent striker in the box, so that means you'll win the game. And 9 times out of 10, that's how it works. So I think that's quite an old-fashioned way to play. But I think Swift is kind of being ignored in all of this in a way. I think he's kind of being bypassed, and I think I don't think you want to do that with him, because I think out of those 3 players in that attacking quartet, he's as good as, either 2 of them for sure, with the way that he's played for Reading. But I mean, I think he's been a bit bypassed, and I've seen fans, like you said, getting on his back. I've seen people, having a pop at him, but I do think he's being bypassed in this system. I think the ball's heading wide, and he's kind of like, well, what on earth am I doing on the pitch, really, if I'm not facilitating any of these attacks and it's just going down the wings? I mean, I don't get why he's in the side, really, if we're not going to play. I get you don't, I get you want to use those wingers as well. I mean, it's a bit of an embarrassment of riches, really, that attacking, that 3 behind the striker. And I get you'd want to utilise them all, but I think Swift's just not being used. I think he's just kind of being bypassed. And every time he's got the ball, it's his job to pass it wide rather than to try and create something himself. And I think that's where he's come under a bit of criticism, because people are saying, "Oh, he's going missing. He's not involved." And I think, I think maybe that is a little bit down to him. Maybe confidence is quite low for him, perhaps at the moment. But I think he's been, really bypassed. Tom, I don't know what you make of that, but I think he's not being considered really in the system.
No, I think you're right, man. I think I just think, there's an element to it. I think he has, already you can see he's lost a bit of confidence, and I think you're right. I think we play so much down the wings that, he's just kind of floating around for a lot of the game. And like you said, his game is kind of sitting between the lines, trying to find those pockets of space in front of the defence, making things happen, playmaker. Very much kind of like the player Matthias Pereira was, but the thing, the difference with, and I think this is probably a good example to use, that Bilic team was, we were able to mix it up, weren't we, in terms of how we were playing. So we did kind of utilize the wingers well, and, get balls into the box, because we obviously had Robson Carnu and Charlie Austin, didn't we, lead in the line that season, who are quite good in the air and can get on the end of crosses and so on. But we were also then able to play between the lines and come at teams from the middle of the pitch as well, with the likes of Pereira and Sawyers, and their passing ability to kind of break through those lines and cause problems. I think again, I'm really hoping that, the addition of Tom Rogic, because I do think he's a really good player and a really good addition, will kind of help Swift, in that kind of play in the midfield and kind of in between those lines and pockets and space and so on. I think those two might kind of gel and kind of work off each other quite well. But it's a shame, because obviously, Rogic is coming in. It was his first game yesterday. And you could see he's obviously not fully fit yet, and he hasn't played football at all this season, other than on the training pitch. and but there was still a few signs there for me. But he's kind of joined the team at a really bad time, hasn't he? With us underperforming, on this bad run of form, players are starting to become a bit dejected and losing confidence, and the fan base is starting to get really edgy. It's not the best time to come and join a club, is it? So
it really isn't.
So I think you're right. I think he's not utilising Swift as well as he should be, and there's too much focus down the wings and getting balls into the box when we haven't got that number 9 target man currently available to us, and it's just a bit baffling to me.
Yeah, and I mean with Rogic, I think I was a little bit disappointed by him, but as you said, I think he just lacked that bit of sharpness on the ball. I think that was a little bit concerning for me, but I guess that we weren't. Yeah, I think he had quite limited touches on the ball, to be honest. I mean, he sprayed a few passes out wide where you thought, oh, there's a bit of quality from him. But yeah, I think he did look a little bit out of sorts, kind of feeling his way back in. But that's why I was wondering why he was put in from the start, Tom. I mean, it was a bit of a confusing one to me for a lad who hasn't played probably since the back end of last season with Celtic. I mean, obviously he's a quality player and a great addition. And I mean, lots of championship sides, I'm surprised, weren't really in for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced it was the right decision to start him. I get that we kind of changed things a little bit and went a bit more attacking with him instead of Malumbi in there and kind of having him and Swift in there. But I think that when we're kind of ignoring the midfield, unless we're out of possession and we're trying to win the ball back, I don't think there was much point in really adding another body in there that's more attacking, because all it did was kind of expose us defensively. But yeah, Tom, I was just wondering, how do you feel about him starting the game? I mean, I was a bit confused as to why he came in straight away.
Yeah, I agree. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Us kind of looking back now, but I did find the decision a bit odd, because first of all, Bruce, I think himself had said it's going to take him a bit of time to get up and running. Obviously with the international break to kind of work with him and see him on the training pitch, and he's obviously seen something, that's made him think, oh, okay, I've got to start him against Swansea. But the big disappointment for me, first of all, was him dropping Malumbi, because I don't think he deserved that. I think he, in the last couple of games, especially against Norwich and in that poor performance against Blues, I think he was probably one of our few standout players who put in a good performance and could have hold their head high. And I think he's had a good season so far. I know the team hasn't, but I think he's had a good season so far and he's getting better. So for him to leave Malumbi out, I felt that was harsh, first of all. And look, I know Livermore came back in, and Livermore played quite well yesterday, to be fair. And he did against Norwich, didn't he? Livermore put in a decent game against Norwich. But it was the thing that's just kind of standing out for me. It kind of ties into what we were just talking about then with kind of Swift. He obviously still doesn't know what his best kind of trio of players are in that midfield, does he? Because Yokozlu was brought in straight away, and it's the first signs that he was kind of struggling a little bit. He's been dropped and he hasn't been brought back in, and Livermore's been brought back in, and but then, like I said, Malumbi's been playing well, but he dropped Malumbi yesterday for Rogic, who came in and didn't play too well. And it's again, it's another concern in that he doesn't seem to know, what his best, especially that midfield pairing. He doesn't seem to know what his best pairing is, and it's such an important area of the field. For him to be kind of still experimenting and swapping and chopping. How many games in are we now? To 11 12 games? Yeah, 11 games. Again, it's a concern, isn't it? So, like I said, I think Rogic he'll prove to be, a good addition. I do think he's a good player, but yeah, it was odd, and it definitely, just from his performance, you can definitely say it come too soon for him, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, I get why I would have definitely brought him off the bench, because you want to get, the only way he's going to gain a bit of match sharpness is by playing in the matches themselves. I mean, there's no other way to do it. But yeah, it just seemed a little bit of a confusing decision, because I think Bruce is normally, from what we've understood of him so far, quite careful with, giving players, rushing players back into action, that kind of thing. And I just thought it was a bit of a weird decision. I mean, there was another weird decision for me, Tom, and that was the penalty later on in the game. I firstly would put it out there that I don't think it was much of a penalty, to be honest. But
soft, wasn't it?
Yeah, very, very soft. And number two, I was a bit confused as to why Karlan Grant was the one who was taking it. I get that he won it. I don't like using the word won in terms of penalties, but he did win the penalty. But with Thomas Asante on the field, I'm a bit confused as to why, after scoring his last one, why he didn't take it.
Well, it is odd, and it's something I've found odd for a while now. And I even made a point of it last season, in that Grant has never had a good penalty record, but he's still somehow managed to remain our number one choice for spot kicks, and I don't understand it. Last season, he missed a few last season, and then this season, even with the likes of Wallace and Swift being brought in, who I know took penalties for Reading and Millwall, had really good conversion rate at both those teams. That he's obviously managed to keep hold of it. And I think he took one away, didn't he? Was it against Hull, I think, was it? He did score one, didn't he, earlier on in the season. Yeah. But still, he's got like a kind of, I think it's about a 60-40 conversion rate when it comes to penalties for us, and I think that will be it now. I think that will be it after that miss yesterday. I think he'll be taken off spot kicks and they'll be given to someone else. But you're right, his poor conversion rate combined with how well Thomas Asante took his penalty away in the game against Blues. He stepped up really confidently and slotted it in the corner. Yeah, why didn't he give it? And what made it even worse for me was, there was, at that point in the game, there was so much kind of, it was balanced, wasn't it? It was poised. Game had gone backwards and forwards a bit. 2-2. He puts that penalty away. We're probably going to win the game. You'd like to think we'd be able to hold on, win the game. Puts that penalty away. Yeah. Why try something a little fancy? Why try something fancy in that moment? That little kind of it wasn't a Paneka, but it was like a little kind of fake, wasn't it, down the middle? I'm just thinking, just try and bury it in the bottom corner or in the top corner and just hit it with a bit of pace. Don't try something blooming fancy at that moment, that point in the game, and that was what's disappointing for me as well. It just kind of said, it was just a bit brain dead, to be honest with you. Give it a bloody blast and just try and get it in the net and just try and get the 3 points. 3 points we probably didn't deserve, but 3 points that would have been absolutely massive for us, could have potentially kick-started our season. You never know. So I was raging with it. But the kind of sad thing is I was kind of expecting it as well, because he's just not very good at penalties.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's 3 out of his last 4 that he's missed. I mean, the one he scored was Hull. I mean, he missed 2 towards the back end of last season, one against Coventry, one against Barnsley, and has obviously missed that one yesterday. So that's 25% conversion rate out of those last 4. I mean, Brandon Thomas Asante, I thought he took that penalty against Blues. I thought that was a proper penalty, the way that he kind of blasted it into the net, and I think that was exactly what we needed. But the confusing thing is, I think Grant was on the pitch against Birmingham at that point, if I remember rightly. I think they were both on the pitch, so I was a bit confused as to why. They're both on the pitch again, and Grant's had it off in May. Maybe it's a case of whoever wins it takes it, but I don't think that should ever really be the case. But yeah, I mean, that was frustrating for me, Tom. I mean, I didn't really get that at all, to be honest. Tom, I mean, it's obviously the defeat against Swansea was pretty dismal, but sort of the general picture of things are looking pretty bleak. I mean, that's 1 win in 11 this season and just the 1 clean sheet to our name as well. I mean, how much pressure do you think Bruce should be under at the moment? Because, I mean, looking at the local press, looking at Twitter and stuff, it seems like he's under a lot of pressure. In your mind, how much pressure do you think he's under?
I think he's got to go, mate. I'm going to be really, really blunt. And I think, I just don't know how, if he's to I know we've got Preston up next in our next game away, haven't we? Is that in midweek or is that next weekend?
Wednesday night, that is.
Is it Wednesday, is it? Yeah. Maybe the kind of if there's no kind of announcement tomorrow, Tuesday, the thought process is that we've got a midweek game. Let's give him the midweek game, see how we get on. But I just don't think, I think it's quite clear that we aren't gonna, the aspirations which we had at the start of the season, which were to at least get in the playoffs. I think it's been proven already that Steve Bruce isn't going to manage to be able to do that this season, for me anyway, mate. And I just think, I think 11 games in, there's still time to turn things around, isn't there? I think, good example, look at, what Steve Cooper did last season with Nottingham Forest. He came in when they were bottom, probably around a similar time, I think it was, wasn't it? And he got them on a good run, and he got them playing, and he got them motivated. So there's still time, in my opinion, to and it's still close, isn't it? The league still ridiculously close, and I think it would, but we can't keep getting further and further away from those playoff spots, especially if the performances are getting worse, which they are. So for me, the pressure's definitely on him. In his post-match interview yesterday, he confirmed that himself, that if he's feeling the heat, and he'd understand, if he was to get the chop, 1 win in 11 games just isn't anywhere near good enough. So, but I honestly have no idea whether they will or not, mate. That's the kind of bonkers thing with all this is, you see the managers that are getting sacked in this division and in the Premier League, for much less. Less. And even Albion managers, the last few Albion managers that have been sacked have gone for much less. So it's kind of baffling, to be honest with you, that he's kind of still there, and the Albion fans amongst themselves are saying, well, there's a good chance he'll be there on Wednesday and the game the following weekend. I just think it's a bit insane, to be honest with you, mate. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ishmael was sacked in the playoff positions. Slaven Bilic sacked after getting Albion to the Premier League, and just after a draw with Manchester City, as we all know. I mean, Darren Moore also inside the playoffs before that. I mean, I mean, managers have gone for much less, but here we are. I mean, I get that maybe the club are kind of trying to not repeat, the same mistake with, as they've kind of been a bit trigger happy maybe with the likes of, well, maybe not Ishmael, but perhaps, Bilic and Moore. There's definitely a case for both of those to have, stuck around a little longer. But I think, with Bruce at the moment, I mean, we're outside the relegation on goal difference. We're 8 points away from the playoffs, which isn't a long way, let's be honest. And it's still very much salvageable, but is it salvageable under the current manager? And I think that's where the questions are being asked for me. I hate calling for the manager to be sacked, because I feel it's such a knee-jerk, it's the thing that everybody says, the manager, it's all about the manager. But for me, I can't see Bruce. I don't think he's getting the best out of this squad. I mean, last season I have sympathy with him, because I thought, the squad isn't what you'd want. It isn't, good enough to go up. We've lost quite a few key assets. We've lost, we haven't really replaced them. And now I'm looking at this squad this season, and I think it's inexcusable that, the fact that we're not beating teams quite well with even with the back line. I think, that's still a good defense, and we're conceding goals for fun. I mean, it's baffling. I mean, the goalkeeper, I think Button, I'm not a big fan of him, and I don't think I've been this season. I'm not sure, I'm not really sure why he's still being given the games, considering the mistake he made yesterday as well. I mean, but I think that side, that the squad, I think you can get that to the playoffs with some good coaching, and I think there's no reason why we shouldn't be up there. And for me, that's why the questions have to be asked of Bruce. And I think I can't see him. I can't. But the baffling thing is, I can see him still being there next week. That's the worrying thing. I can still see him in the job. Come, well, we'll call it 6 days' time when we're playing Luton next weekend. I mean, I can see him still there. I mean, I think that Gourlay and him have clearly, got a bit of a, good relationship, and they get on very well. And I think, it seems like it's kind of the easiest thing to do to keep him in the job. And for me, I think that's what's causing, the happenings on the pitch the greatest harm, because although we haven't had the best transfer window, although we haven't, that deadline day debacle, I mean, happened, and we were all, really upset about that. For what it's worth, off the pitch, it's not going well, but on the pitch, there's quality enough to make things click this season. And I don't think Bruce is doing that at all. And that's when, you've really got, I think, you've got to look at replacing him, I think, for me. Tom, I don't know how you feel about him, sort of how much he's getting the best out of this squad, because, or maybe it's a case of how do you feel about, maybe I'm going to play devil's advocate, maybe the team are, the players are underperforming, but, again, you could come back at that with maybe Bruce is, not helping them with the system he's playing. I mean, how do you feel about, the blame possibly being pointed towards the players? I mean, how would that sit in your eyes?
No, you're right. It's just classic football fan, isn't it? You point the finger at the manager, and to be fair, even the managers themselves know, the kind of environment they work in. That's always going to be the case. 'Cause I think it's the thing is, we have added some, obviously early on in the season we put in some good performance, and there's been some improvements with individuals, especially like Dean Garner. He's been playing quite well this season, and Jed Wallace I think has been really good, consistent, throughout all the games so far. I don't think he's had one bad game yet, Jed Wallace. For me, it's like I don't. There's not really any kind of individuals I think you can kind of point the finger at and say, they're there, not trying, or they're not kind of performing well, or they're not. I come back to what I said earlier, mate. I just think, he hasn't got a plan B. Like I said, he's got this way he wants to set up the formation, and he hasn't changed that one bit since the start of the season. There's blatantly obvious he hasn't got a plan B. And this is why I think, it's starting to get worse and worse, because, if you're a player, and you're on the pitch week in, week out, and the manager keeps insisting on the same formation, putting you in the same position, and it's not working, and then the next game comes along and he does exactly the same thing, you don't get a result, you lose the match, following week same thing. You're going to start becoming a bit demoralized, aren't you? You're going to start questioning the managers and his coaching team's approach and tactics, and start thinking, well, come on, you keep doing the same thing, you're picking the same players, and it's not working. We're not getting points, we're not winning games. So you're right, there's always got to be an element of the players kind of taking responsibility to a point, but with me, the book starts with Bruce, and I just think I think he's been given a good 11 games. I said this at the start of the season. I said 10 games. I said he's got 10 games to prove himself, because I think that's a good amount of games to have had your pre-season, bedded your new signings in, realised who your best team is, and then you've had you're coming up to a quarter of the way through the season, pretty much, aren't you? Just less. And where are we? Like you said, we're outside the relegation zone on goal difference, with 1 win in 11 matches, and we're getting worse as each game passes. Especially in defence. We're just shipping goals for fun. How can someone keep their job because of that? And especially when the team itself has got aspirations of going up, it just doesn't make any sense.
It
doesn't make any sense. And what I'm hoping is happening is that they're just trying to they're discussing things behind the scenes. Maybe they give him the game against Swansea, maybe they give him the game against Preston, but I'm just hoping that the kind of wheels in motion are in motion behind the scenes. In terms of compensation being agreed, and coming up with an offer for Bruce, and already out there maybe kind of putting the feelers out as to who they potentially want to come in and replace him. That's what I'm hoping is going on, but you just don't know, do you? Like you said, you just don't know, because of our incompetent owner, and Gourlay and his, like you said, his ties to Bruce from the past. Whether they're just going to stick with him and just keep persevering with him, but it'll just be the wrong decision for me, mate. And I can only just see things getting worse, unfortunately, if that's what happens.
Yeah, me too. I think I look, and this is a big month. I think we've got something ridiculous like 6 or 7 games crammed into October because of the World Cup. I mean, if they wait it out until the end of this month, I mean, that's a huge chunk of the season gone. You're knocking on half. You're knocking on halfway. Through the season by the end of this month, and possibly even getting to the World Cup. I mean, I think it could be too late. Maybe by the time, at the moment, I think it's very much salvageable. As we said, 8 points off the playoffs. That's 3 wins on the bounce. If a new manager comes in, could come and get 3 wins on the bounce. But for me, as you said, I can only see things getting a little bit worse. I can see the players losing a lot of confidence. And then I think you're in the same boat as when Ishmael left, where you've got quite a toxic atmosphere. The players on the floor, really, with their confidence. You look at, I have liked the way Grady's been playing, but you look at the way Grady was when Ishmael left. I can see that happening with quite a few, different players who are obviously struggling at the moment to find form. Maybe somebody like Swift, who's clearly very creative and is kind of being stifled by the way we're playing. I mean, it becomes a bigger issue the longer that it kind of goes on, unless 100%. Things drastically change. And at the moment, we're not seeing any signs. I mean, the start of the season I remember speaking to you last time on the podcast. We were talking about, we'll just be patient with it because things are going. We're putting in the right performances, but we're not getting the results. And I think that now it's kind of the opposite. We're putting in the wrong performances, and the results certainly aren't coming in. The performances are getting a lot worse. And for me, Tom, I can see them getting worse, like yourself, if things either, unless Bruce pulls out this magic rabbit out of the bag. But I just can't see it happening. I can only see it going one way. And, the more the season trickles away, the more you get towards that World Cup, you're looking at, as I said, you're looking at nearly half the season gone. And, we might be inside the relegation zone by then. We might be looking at a very, very different challenge, for a manager coming in. You're talking about, I've seen, people touting, likes of Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche won't come to West Brom if we're in the relegation zone. Absolutely not. I think, we're probably in a good place now to maybe attract somebody.
Someone.
I think we're, looking at the squad, it's 3 wins, as we've said, to get up into the playoffs. I think, the longer this possibly goes on, this run of form, you're looking at, you're not looking at quality managers anymore. You're looking at managers who might even have to come in and try and do a bit of a firefighting job, which for the Championship is absolutely baffling. But I don't know who we. As you said, Tom, I just can't see things getting any better. And I think you struggle to see where things can turn around, and until it's too late, really, until you can't attract those good managers anymore, because we're not in that position in the league, despite the quality in the squad.
Yeah, spot on, mate. I can't. That was absolutely spot on. I agree with all that. I think you're right. I think now is the time to act. He's been given an opportunity. It's not worked out. There's still time left, of the season in terms of games left for us to kind of get back into the mix, shall we say? So it needs to be done, sooner rather than later. And this will be the proof in the pudding, because there's not many Albion fans out there who well, how should we say it? It's, in terms of our owner, there's no, he hasn't got many fans, has he, our owner, in terms of the Albion fan base. But this will be the proof of the pudding for me, and that if he still really, really wants to get us back into the Prem, so he can potentially sell the club and get some of the money back that what he spent on purchasing the club, like I said, he needs to take action. He needs to make his move now. And I was speaking to someone today, and they were saying, I'd be surprised if Lai, even looks at our results and knows where we are in the table. And I was thinking, no, I don't agree with that. The guy spent a hell of a lot of money on this club, and he's desperate to get us back into the Premier League so he can potentially sell us and get some of that money back. He's not going about it in the right way whatsoever, but I think it's common knowledge that that's what he's trying to achieve, that's what he wants. So I kind of understand why he'd want to stick with Bruce, with how things have played out so far this season. It just it just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. This next week, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because to see if he still remains in charge for that game against Preston on Wednesday, and see what happens there. Because if we go into that game and we don't get a win, and I say he's got to get a win. A draw's not good enough in that match.
No.
If we don't go and beat Preston and get 3 points, then that simply has to be it, can't it? How many lives has this guy got? If he's still in charge for the game, then at the weekend against Luton, it'd just be absolutely insane, won't it? It'd just make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely spot on. I mean, I can't see unless he wins this game against Preston. If he's still there, there's nowhere left to run, to be honest. I think there's nowhere, nowhere you can hide. But Tom, I think we've said our piece on this. I think, we've ran the mill about Bruce and Albion for more than long enough. I think people are probably sick of hearing us talk about it now. But Tom, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's going to be a difficult week, and hopefully we can come out with some positive, either be it results or a positive change. So thank you so much for coming on, Tom. Just a quick sort of plug towards your Instagram page if people want to go and hear a bit more from you.
Yeah, like I said at the start of the vid, just really appreciate if you come and check out the Instagram page. I am going to put my ideas up, bit of a kick up the backside, and start getting some more video vlogs and stuff like that, and some post-match reactions up and so on, because I've been slacking a bit. But if you're not already kind of following the page, come and have a look and see if you like it. And well, thank you so much for coming on, Tom. Obviously, love chatting to you as always, and appreciate you giving up your time. But Tom's Instagram page, Baggies Bulletin, there'll be a link for that in the description. Hopefully you'll go and check out some of his content on there, some videos and some posts. But I'll also give myself a kick up the backside with regards to podcasts. I'm sure we'll be seeing some more pods over the next couple of weeks or so as we start to hot up into the World Cup. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Baggies Podcast. It's great to be back. If you could leave us a little rating or a review, that would be lovely. A 5-star one would do nicely. Make sure you subscribe on your podcast platform or YouTube, wherever you're listening from as well. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. See you later.